Today we're diving into a fascinating paradox at the very heart of ketamine therapy. It turns out its power as an antidepressant is completely tied to the kind of psychedelic trip a person has. We're going to look at a groundbreaking study that shows how that experience can lead to incredible healing or, well, actually make things worse.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with the central mystery that had scientists scratching their heads. How on earth could a drug that's famous for relieving depression sometimes seem to do the exact opposite in the brain, lighting up the very circuits that are linked to negative feelings? It just doesn't make sense, right? So, first things first, a little background. For years, ketamine has been an absolute game changer. I mean, for people with severe treatment-resistant depression, especially those in a real crisis, its incredibly fast effects have offered hope where pretty much nothing else worked. It's become a really powerful tool in the mental health world.
But that's exactly what makes this recent finding so bizarre. Researchers were using fMRI scans to literally watch the brain during a ketamine treatment, and what they found, on average, was that it increased activity in a region called the Anterior Insula. You can think of that as the brain's alarm system for emotional pain. So the drug that's supposed to help was seemingly turning up the volume under stress. How could that be?
So what in the world was going on? To solve this puzzle, the researchers figured out they had to look beyond just the brain scans. They needed to decode the subjective experience of the psychedelic state itself, what you and I would probably just call the trip.
Now, the main thing ketamine does is induces a state called dissociation. It's that feeling of being disconnected, from your body or the world around you. But, and this is the key, this study shows that not all dissociation is created equal. It turns out there are different flavors to this experience, and that difference changes everything.
The researchers found two really distinct paths. On one hand, you have what we can call the good trip, or depersonalization. That's a feeling of being a safe, almost detached observer of your own body and your own feelings. But on the other hand, you have the more problematic path, a confusing state of dissociative amnesia, which feels more anxious, and you might have gaps in your memory. And to make this a little more real for you, here's an actual quote from someone in the study describing that feeling of depersonalization. "I feel like a 2D character. It's that sense of watching yourself from a distance, which can create this really helpful buffer from overwhelming emotional pain." And then check out this quote. This one perfectly captures a related feeling called derealization, where the whole world itself starts to feel a bit unreal. For some people, this feeling of floating or being somewhere else is actually part of that therapeutic detachment. It's a pretty profound shift in how you experience reality. So, how do these two completely different trips connect back to what's happening in the brain? Well, this is where it gets really, really interesting. It turns out these two experiences map onto completely opposite reactions in that emotional pain center we talked about. Okay, so here's the big reveal. That initial confusing finding, the one that showed increased activity on average, it was basically a mirage. It only existed because the scientists were averaging together two totally different groups of people having two totally different experiences. The real story wasn't in the average at all. It was hidden in the details. Let's break this down. Take a look at the people who had high levels of that therapeutic depersonalization, that safe, detached 2D character feeling. For them, ketamine did exactly what you'd hope. It successfully reduced activity in that brain alarm system. It quieted the noise. But now, look at the other group. For the people who felt more that confusing, anxious amnesia, the drug did the complete opposite. It actually ramped up the activity in that very same brain region. It was making the alarm bells ring even louder. And boom, there it is. That's the solution to the whole mystery. Ketamine is not a one-size-fits-all drug. It really is a double-edged sword. And the direction it swings, whether it helps or hurts your brain's emotional circuits, is decided by the kind of subjective experience you have. So what does this all mean for the future of mental health care? I mean, this discovery isn't just a cool piece of neuroscience. It has some massive, real-world implications. So why does all this matter? Well, for starters, it could help us predict which patients are actually going to benefit from ketamine before they even start. It means therapists could potentially help guide people towards a more therapeutic trip. It also finally explains why so many past studies on ketamine had such mixed, inconsistent results. And looking forward, this could help us design smarter, more targeted psychedelic drugs that give you the benefit without the bad trip. Not just for depression, but maybe for things like addiction too. And that really leaves us with this one big, powerful question. This research suggests the trip itself isn't just a weird side effect. It might actually be the treatment. So the huge takeaway here isn't just about ketamine. It's about a whole new frontier where learning how to shape and guide a person's conscious experience could become one of the most important tools we have for healing the mind.